a lot about strategy, habits, and environment and leadership development. But I think there's one variable that almost never makes it into the conversation. And that's about who you're actually surrounding yourself with and whether those people are expanding or contracting your capacity to kind of be and to lead. And so today on ZZ Exchange, we're going there. So welcome to ZZ Exchange. This is where I have short form conversations where I sit with experienced leaders and think out loud about how leadership and life actually works. So I'm Ainsley Erickson, executive coach, marketing strategist, and founder of Zen Zero. And in my work, I sit with leaders who are navigating maybe transition, identity, and the quiet costs of staying at the top of their game. And community is something that I've been thinking about more deliberately in recent years because I think, most high achieving people are lonelier than they let on. And I know for a fact I was. And I've also learned, sometimes a little bit slowly, that who you're around, it isn't a soft variable. It's really a strategic one. So today I'm super excited because I'm joined by the fabulous Courtney Maier, who's a strategic consciousness coach, a Reiki master, and a former VP of marketing. And I think Courtney brings something really rare to this conversation. Clearly, she has deep corporate roots, but has also made the transition to building something that's really heart-led and intentional that I've been on the receiving end of and will be forever grateful for. And she works at the intersection of strategy, energy, and intuition. And I think she thinks about community with a level of rigor that most leadership frameworks and discussions just don't come close to. So hi Court, welcome to ZZ Exchange.
Thank you so much, Ainsley. It's such a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on this channel and the launch of your own business. I know we're doing that together at the same time, and when we talk about community, it's important to have people in your corner who are going through similar challenges, similar wins. So thanks for being in my corner, part of my community.
Always. And yeah, you're right. This entrepreneur journey, I think you don't maybe have a direct team, so you have to create the quasi team, and it's just so super important. Well, how I wanted to kick off today was kind of in a bit of an honest space, because I think if we go back to corporate days, corporate leadership can be deeply isolating, but it's not something that I think people say out loud very often. And if we can go back there for you, what did that loneliness kind of look like for you? And when did you first name it as actual loneliness rather than just kind of pressure or busyness, and in other words that we like to describe it as?
It's such an interesting journey, the whole climbing the corporate ladder. When you start out at the beginning, all you want to do is make it to the top, and you work so hard, right, to climb that proverbial ladder, and you're going, and you're so motivated. You're motivated by the achievement, by the bonuses, the pay, the ego, of course, gets involved with titles and everything else. So there's a point in your journey where the motivation shifts and you realize that, there's something missing, and that ambition is just not as passion driven anymore as it used to be.
It changes, right? It
changes, something shifts. And the loneliness is kind of twofold. Sometimes you're lonely at the top because you've had to cancel plans with your friends and family because of work. Mm-hmm. And you start to isolate more because you're working long hours and then you're too exhausted, too tired, or too busy to actually make time for your personal life. So there's the loneliness factor and isolation factor there personally. But then, of course, on the corporate side at work as well, because there's a performance aspect to it, because you're trying to put your best foot forward, there's isolation and not being authentically yourself fully. And that of course cause isolation and loneliness as well. So really creating a community around yourself that's going to support you is the most important thing that you can do.
Absolutely. And I think it's also interesting because in corporate too, as you move up that ladder, it's kind of like you become the decision maker. You also can't just go and share all the ideas with your team or the thoughts or the decisions that need to be made. So it naturally becomes a bit more of an isolating role. So for those people that are also in corporate, I think it's also really important. Yes, friends and family, yes, being intentional about community, but also developing your relationships in the organization. So not just down to your immediate team or up to whoever it is that you may report to, or if you're the CEO, the board, but also your peer group, because I think especially in a digital world where we're a little bit more remote as well, it's much harder to have those connections, but I think you have to, because they can be your sounding boards, or also having coaches and mentors and things that are outside that can also be it, right? It's, you do have to be really, really intentional with it.
I agree. And it can be vulnerable to try to make connections with your peers or with those that you may seem to be in competition with as you're climbing the ladder. It can be intimidating to try to bond with those that are senior to you. And sometimes with the teams that you lead, they don't want you to come to their social gatherings because you're the boss. Right?
Yeah.
And that makes things more awkward. So you kind of have to navigate in a way that makes sense for you, but is also comfortable for the people that you're with. There always seems to be like a transactional nature to the corporate relationships or the corporate network.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're out networking, it's usually, what can you do for me? Or how can I get this contract? Or, there's always something you're thinking about business, and really shifting that to, okay, so how can I support you? How can you support me? How can we bond? What do we have in common? What are our values? Is there some sort of common thread here that creates that bond, which will naturally turn into the business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's getting to know people on that human level. And also, too, some of the best networking advice, because you mentioned that, is also what can I do for this person first before you ask for something, right? Like come from a place of service, because that is always going to reward you in the best possible ways, right? So I think it's key.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Right, it's so important. And I think one of the things that I love about working with you, Court, is you're so intentional. And you use that word a lot as well when you talk about community, because I think a little bit like what we've touched on, like often people build community through like proximity and kind of habit. And sometimes you can end up with people who are convenient, not necessarily the people who are right. And I'm not throwing shade to anyone, but just more like what you're actually building towards. And so from your perspective, like what does it actually mean to build community with intention?
It's a great question. And it's something on my journey where I actively set out to create a group around me that equally I could support and they could support me. So I'm big on energy. As you know, everything's the foundation of energy. And my belief is that everything needs to be of equal exchange. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it doesn't have to be, that doesn't necessarily mean like monetary value, but equal exchange is, I'm going to be there for you, you're going to be there for me. So maybe sometimes you're
Reciprocity, right?
80%, right? I'm 20%, maybe it flips over, but over the journey, there's going to be that equal exchange. We both benefit from having a heart-led conversation, from giving tips and tricks to each other that helps our business, right? To referrals and networking, there's an equal exchange. So it's not someone draining the other for advice, right?
Mhm.
Support for their business. It's really a community of, listen, there's room for all of us here, and we're all going to rise together.
Absolutely. And I want to shout you out in that space because Courtney, as well as she stepped into entrepreneurship, has also developed the Alchemy network, which is exactly that, Court. So I don't know if you just want to touch on that for like a minute or two as well.
Yeah, when I set up my business, it's called Courtney Maier and Associates. And the associates part was really important to me. So in my healing journey, I worked with everyone that you see in the Alchemy network today. So that's everything from yourself, Ainsley, with leadership coaching and marketing support, all the way through to hypnotherapy, to financial support, to nutritional support, psychic medium, like you name it, I've done it. And that's been an incredible part of my healing journey. And it was important for me to know that, yes, this is what I do. I'm rooted in energy healing, intuitive coaching, human design. But I also understand that I might not be for everybody. But look, I have a network who you might find someone that you resonate with more. And I would like to provide a trusted referral system where everybody can benefit. So you will find someone within the network that is right for you, whether that's me or somebody else, but we are all here collectively to help with growth. So that was important to me. And also, on the flip side, there's a benefit for me as well. So I am new to the industry. I'm not on social media actively on purpose. And there's a benefit to me from a business standpoint in creating a community as well. So I hosted my very first retreat with one of the associates who has a really high following. So we were able to sell out 50 seats at a retreat over 2 retreats immediately because she has a higher following than I do. So there's a benefit there of partnering with people who have gone before you and are willing to work with you and sort of help you rise with them. So equally, we have other people who've joined the network who are brand new, and I'm doing the same for them now. So it's, again, equal exchange, creating that value for everybody, where not only can our clients benefit, but so can we.
Absolutely, and I think that reciprocity piece is really big, and I think as well, I want to add, like, with intentionality, it's not about replacing what you have, because what you have has got you to where you are, and I think that's incredible, right? It's about being more conscious about what you're adding, what you're nurturing, what you're showing up for, and community, it doesn't maintain itself, right? And for people who are busy, heads down, people who are often giving more than they're receiving, it's easy sometimes to let the tending to it slip, right? If I want to use a garden analogy. And I think it's recognizing that community is something you build forward. It's not just something you've already got, right? It's honoring the relationships you have, but still being really deliberate about what you're kind of building towards as well, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and I think there's like a really nice energy piece to that community as well. So even in my business, every month I do a donation to charity with, 10% of whatever I've made off of my sessions that month. And then for animal communication sessions that I do, I give $25 to the SPCA in honor of the animals. So it's important not only to, create that community for your clients, for yourself, but for it to expand as well. So, as I grow, those donations are going to grow because there's an impact when you're intentional and heart-led with your business. And it's, again, equal exchange. It comes back.
Yeah, and it does come back because Luna has experienced animal communication with Court, and they are total besties, so I love that. But I also want to bring into the conversation something that I often think gets left out, especially in the leadership and kind of corporate space. And it's something that you're particularly equipped to speak to, Court. So, you have an intuitive practice, you work with Reiki, and you practice that alongside kind of strategy. And one of the thoughts that I keep coming back to, and obviously know and feel really deeply, is community isn't just kind of psychological, it is energetic. Everything is energy, right? And that who you're around either expands or contracts, your capacity to lead, if we think about it in a corporate setting. And your body often knows before your mind does. It's just whether or not we kind of listen to it. And can you speak to that from your perspective and what that means and kind of what you've seen it do to people when they get it right, and conversely, when maybe they're not listening and they get it wrong?
Absolutely. And you're so right. Like your body is always going to tell you what's going on first. So the trick is to have awareness at all times. And awareness comes from deep breathing, just from being present, from grounding, just for a few moments. So, when you walk into a room and you're wondering, are these my people? Is this going to be a good room for me? How do I feel in my body? It's really walking in, taking a breath and settling in. If you're feeling anxious, if you're fiddling with your clothes, if your eyes are sort of darting around the room and you're feeling unsafe or insecure or any of those emotions, that's a really good indication, right?
Yeah.
That the energy in that room may not be for you. So sometimes you still have to go into that room, and that's okay too. So that's where you get really, really grounded, right? Get protected, and then be again intentional with who you're interacting with. Every interaction with every person is a currency exchange. So who are you willing to invest your time and energy into, and what are you getting in return? Because it's either going to add or it's going to subtract. And the
Yeah,
idea is
no,
to add as much as you can.
oh, 100%. And I think it's all that nervous system work, right? And this is a space I'm diving more and more into it and have a lot to learn. But, our nervous systems are genuinely influenced by everyone around us. And as human beings, we're completely wired for connection. I mean, I just look at what's happening what right now, like with Artemis 2 and like just the world feels so connected and is blowing up with moon joy, and it's a really wonderful thing, and I think it's helped even bring people back into a regulated state. But I think that connection with those people that where there's a reciprocity of like energy is so important to help us remain regulated and to help us like feel safe with everything. And it's tough in a world right now where there's a lot going on.
It is. It can be tough, right? And when there's so much demands of you, like you can't, always just go have a bath and meditate, while you're busy networking at work. Like that's not possible. But what you can do is really focus on your self-care, your unapologetic self-care as your number one priority. And that means, clearing your energy, getting really grounded, getting into your body, understanding the cues that your body is telling you. How is your breath rate? Where are you feeling the energy in your body? Do you have knots in your stomach? Is your chest pounding? And really just getting used to those signals and then understanding how to regulate your nervous system. When you have that, everything else kind of quiets around you. It can either panic you or it can calm you, right? And it all depends on how inwards you've gone and where you're at in your journey to connect with yourself.
And I think that knowledge is power, being able to recognize those autonomic states and being able to clock, okay, this is where I am, this is what I need to do. Well, cool. We're at 18 minutes, so I'm going to jump to Coach's Corner and throw you out 3 questions for rapid fire kind of answers. But first one, and you've spoken to it a bit already, but like intentional community building and what it actually looks like in practice. What's one concrete thing someone could do this week to start shifting like who they're surrounding themselves with?
I think the best thing you can do, again, coming back to that awareness piece, it's do an audit, right? Sit down with the people you spend most of your time with and really just be aware in the moment. Is it adding? Is it subtracting? How am I feeling when I'm with them? How am I feeling after I've interacted with them? Are you drained? Are you energized? Are you motivated? Are you insecure? Right? And just start taking note. So number one, just awareness and take note. And then you can
Love
come up
that.
with a plan from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, question number 2. What's one practice that helps someone stay grounded in who they are when maybe the community around them or the environment around them at that particular time is pulling them in different directions?
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit. It's really coming back to your body, right? So it's that self-care routine, getting grounded, deep breath. It doesn't have to be hours long. It's just a few deep breaths before you go into a tough meeting. It's when you're watching the news and everything around you is chaotic and there's divisiveness in conversations, coming back to your body, getting grounded so that you can be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's a key one, not reactive. Okay, so is there a practice or a signal that you recommend, like that people become more aware of when they know whether they're in the right room before their actually mind catches up with them, right? Like, is there a feeling that it's like, oh, that's what that is?
Yeah, again, it's coming in and taking that deep breath, right? And really just getting into your body and just for a quick second, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? What's the energy around me? Who's around me? And how do I feel in this moment? And again,
Yeah.
if you need to like take a step back, leave, take a breath, you can do that. Or if you're ready to go in and you're feeling really confident, grounded, go for it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I recognize that from networking events. I mean, no one would accuse me of being shy, for example, but sometimes in large conferences, it was sort of that intimidating thing. And a few quick breaths and being like, scanning the room and being like, there's a group of people, I'm going to walk up and introduce myself, and just actually being a little bit more planned before I stepped across the
And
threshold and did it was really key.
yeah, someone
Oh,
else is feeling the same way you are, so you will find them.
yeah, absolutely. But it's a moment of bravery, right? Being that
It is.
person to walk up and interrupt a group. Well, Court, this has been exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have. So honest and grounded and in territory that I think a lot of leadership conversations don't always get into, right? So for anyone who's listening, and if something in this landed, I'd really sit with the question of whether the community around you right now is expanding or contracting you. Not as a judgment, just as information, because I really believe that who you're in the room with is shaping you, whether you're paying attention to it or not. And I love Courtney's idea of an audit. We will link all of Courtney's work below. And if this conversation surfaced something for you, drop a comment, share it with someone who maybe needs it. Come find me at Zen0 or Court. And as always, subscribe to ZZ Exchange for short form conversations that offer perspective, language, and permission, and hopefully no pressure or packaged answers. So, Court, thank you for today. I really appreciated you coming on.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.